Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. Why is it that some real estate investors are so much more successful than others? It boils down to some success habits. The good news is these are learnable skills, and we've got a great guest who's going to share some awesome ideas about how you can connect the dots to get your message out there today on the Real Estate Guys radio program. Hear ye, hear ye. Registration is now open for the Real Estate Guys 19th Annual Investor Summit. Imagine spending an entire week with like-minded investors, world-class educators, and real-world professionals. Returning this year are sales legend Tom Hopkins, the editor of the Gold Newsletter Brian London, international real estate developer Beth Clifford, and Jim Rohn's 18-year business partner Kyle Wilson. And joining us live and in person for his 9th Investor Summit, Peter Schiff. Plus, returning for his 9th Investor Summit, best-selling author and the Rich Dad advisor for real estate, Ken McElroy. Plus, lots more to be announced. It all begins June 11th in beautiful Belize. Visit realestateguysradio.com and click the tab that says Summit to reserve your spot. This transformational week is like no conference you've ever attended. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click Summit and make plans to spend a week with the Real Estate Guys, Peter Schiff, Ken McElroy, and an all-star faculty on the 19th Annual Investor Summit. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio show. I'm your host, Robert Helms. With me, as usual, it's our financial strategist and co-host, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
You know, today is a great show. It's not a typical real estate investing show, though, because what we're going to talk about today is connecting the dots. How do you take whatever it is that you do and get the word out? How do you market? How do you brand? How do you build a reputation? And how do you work through other people?
Yeah, well, I think that it's arguably one of the most important shows we've done, because where a lot of real estate investors fail is they think it's about the transaction. They think it's about the numbers. They think it's about the due diligence. All of those things are important, but in any business, real estate investing, podcasting, mortgage business, running an ice cream parlor, it doesn't matter. Building your brand and building your network are the most important things. How people know you, how they think about you, how they feel about you determines whether or not they move closer to you, they bring you opportunities, they do business with you, they send you referrals, or whether you're at the bottom of the list, you're the last person on earth they want to do business with. Everybody is in between those two extremes. And the closer you can get to the side of it where people know you, like you, trust you, and want to do business with you and are willing to put their reputation on the line to share your opportunities with other people, that's the key to having a great business. And that's true in real estate investing too.
You know, it seems obvious that if I have a storefront, I want to do what's necessary to get people to notice me, to come in, to like my product, to show up. But in real estate investing, it's even more important. Your reputation is critical. And there's a lot of mavericks, a lot of lone wolves out there in real estate. But the sooner you realize that this is a relationship business and that you can positively affect the outcome of relationships if you're strategic about it, the better. Our guest today has an amazing background. He's probably the best known guy in the personal development world that you've never heard of. Although maybe you've heard of Kyle Wilson. He and Jim Rohn were partners for 18 years. He's got more than 10 #1 Amazon bestseller books because he knows how to connect the dots. When we come back, you'll meet Kyle Wilson on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Having trouble finding deals where the numbers make sense? Invest in an asset class that delivers cash flow to you in good times and bad, and where most of that cash flow is tax-free. I'm Dave Zook. Many of you have heard me speak at Real Estate Guys events or heard me on their podcast. My team is a top 5 ATM operator in the country, and right now accredited investors can make cash flow returns well into the double digits and get huge tax deductions. For your free report on this lucrative asset class, email atm@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Anthony Melchiori from Hotel Impossible, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, heard every weekend on this great radio station all the time at realestateguysradio.com. We're talking today about getting the word out. How do you market yourself? How do you message correctly? And how do you form the success habits necessary to achieve everything you want? To help us in that regard, let's welcome our good friend and Jim Rohn's 18-year business partner, Kyle Wilson. Hey, Kyle.
Hey there, Robert.
Good to have you back, my friend.
It's good to be back.
And it's good to not be doing a Zoom call.
True.
Like the Real Estate Guys for years have always done face-to-face interviews. And now, like everybody, we're locked in our studios and doing a lot of Zoom and all of that. But we're here face-to-face, 6 feet apart.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. So folks have maybe heard your story on the show, but for people that don't know, you've got an amazing background. You were Jim Rohn's business partner for many, many years. I first discovered Jim Rohn on your watch, and thanks to you, you've preserved so much of his amazing work, his audios, his videos, his books. But you've got such an interesting story, and we go 1,000 directions, but I guess let's start with this. I'd like to have the listeners kind of appreciate, where you've been. I mean, how do you go from being a service station owner in Vernon, Texas, to being Jim Rohn's business partner?
That's a great question. A lot like Jim and a lot like a lot of us, right? Had modest upbringing and just serendipitous events. I grew up in a small town, never went to college. And like you said, one of my first businesses was a detail shop and eventually a service station. But at age 26, I moved to Dallas looking for a new opportunity. And after doing several things, I went to a seminar. And the guy putting on the seminar was looking to hire people. And I ended up going to work for him. The thought of it was very terrifying, having to go out and cold call and go speak at companies to sell tickets. But Robert, within a year, I got pretty good at it, and I became his top guy. And then I eventually went out on my own, and I started doing events all over the country. And I would hire Jim Rohn, hire Brian Tracy, hire Mark Victor Hansen, Og Mandino. And eventually in 1993, I made Jim Rohn an offer and started Jim Rohn International.
Part of the brilliance of that story, and it's part of the topic I wanted to cover today, is that you were marketing back before there was an internet. So you had to go figure out, in this case, how to sell tickets to a live event. You're knocking on doors, you're making presentations, you're making cold calls. And then as Mr. Rohn's business grew, you had books to sell and audio cassettes back in the day, and you did that through mail orders. So I think today people think that marketing means I've got to be online, but the marketing principles, you talk about that. You talk about the difference between a principle and a tactic a lot.
Yeah, well, first of all, back then, all I knew to do was go call companies to book myself to speak. And I always talk about marketing as simply connecting the dots. And so I would connect the dots. What's easier, a referral or to just call cold traffic? So I started collecting referrals, asking for referrals, getting testimonial letters, then calling those. And I go to a new city and have a box of referrals and a box of testimonial letters. And then I realized, okay, I go from one city to the next and I'm starting over. How do I start building a base in each city? And so you just start connecting those dots. And then in 93, I came up with the wheel. And the wheel is you're the hub. And each spoke is your different product and service. And how do you get people on the wheel and then take them around? And as you mentioned, technology changes the tactics of how we market. So back then there was no internet, right? So it was direct mail. It was advertising magazines. But even then, my goal, if I ran an ad in Success Magazine, was to get people to call us and me get their contact info so I could put them on my list. And so that was the principle of it, right? Is get a contact, get someone on your list, and then build a relationship with them over time. Now, the internet came and it got really easy. I was one of the first guys to build a 1 million+ list, but it was based on the principle of how do you get people on your wheel, take them around by building a relationship. versus churning through people. And that's what so many people do. And you talk about hunting versus farming. And so people are out hunting, so they're starting over every day. But when you're a true farmer, you're building a relationship and it becomes a compounding effect on everything you do. And so I think back to your point of technology and principles is a lot of people think it's all about the technology.
Right. I need the greatest site. I need to be the social media maven. I need to be, instantly connect people on my phone. And maybe that's true, but that's not the point.
That's not the point. Yeah, the tactics change constantly, right? And we can always be chasing tactics, and there's plenty of people that want you to think that way because they're selling you something, right? And a lot of times they got to tell you what's not working to tell you what they think will work. But the principle side, that's having a great product, first of all. Second of all, having great service. Third of all, being consistent, but most importantly, being relational and getting people on your list and then talking to them over a period of time. And so a lot of people, I think, confuse the tactics with the principles. And so they put all their focus, all their money, all their effort on the tactics side, and they really ignore the principle side. But if you have a great product and great service, and you have a way to connect with a prospect over and over and over and over again, you're going to watch your business compound. And the reverse is oftentimes, as we said, people are starting over. I had a call with someone yesterday that, I've had conversations with for 3 years now. They'll pop in every 6 months looking for the quick fix, and they're starting over. I had a conversation the day before that with someone that did everything I said related to what we're talking about. And now they have a business that's doing incredibly well. And they actually did it easier, less expensive, because they just did the principles. And to me, that gets back to this thing called connecting the dots, right? Just taking a look, what's the most efficient, effective way to connect what you do with a prospect and a customer. And the wheel, there's some aspects and intricacies about the wheel and secret sauce and being strategic and all that good stuff.
I think a lot of real estate agents, we see this. If they've done a good job of keeping in touch with their clients, we're gonna make the supposition that you're going to take good care of people. Like that's kind of okay, I want to take good care of people. I have a good product, a good service. If they hire me, that's going to be great for them and great for me. Okay, if we just have that assumption, because that's not true for everybody, but if that's the assumption, some of the people that churn through clients aren't really interested in long-term taking care of the people. But if you are, then watching agents that have done a masterful job of just keeping in touch, just dripping, just calling, sending, emailing, do so much better than those that are good, sometimes really good at getting engagement from somebody, but then they kind of drop off the face of the earth. And one of the things I remember you did early in the internet was an email newsletter, an e-zine, and it was all text to start with, right? It was Jim Rohn, and you had a few quotes, and you had a story, and you talked about a product, and then at the end, you said, this email's gone out to 17,500 people, whatever the number was, please forward it. And every week, we watched that number grow. Now, today, that seems obvious, but back then, nobody was doing that.
Yeah, and we're talking 99, 2000. I also started Messages from the Masters, Quotes from the Master, Slide Edge newsletter. And what it allowed me to do also was to joint venture with other people because I had multiple resources to promote with. So I always say, create platforms. When you create platforms, you now become more valuable to the marketplace. If you're going to have someone on your podcast and they have a big audience to go announce that to, that makes them a little bit more valuable to you than it would be someone that has no list or anything to work with. So I think the way you take responsibility for your own business is once you get a customer, you want to keep them and you want to communicate with them. So back to the agent analogy is that they're not that worried about who says yes. They're just bringing value. They're just doing the right thing. They're just serving, and the right people will say yes. But if you're focused, again, on hunting, it's important someone says yes, right? Versus putting good stuff out there and just doing the right thing, knowing that the numbers game is going to work for you in due time.
That's such a critical principle that it takes people time to engage. We have people show up at our events and they just found our podcast 2 weeks ago. And we have people that show up that says, I've been listening for 8.5 years and this is the first event I've been to. And I always talk with our team about, there's people out there, a whole bunch of them that one day we'll see at an event. Maybe that's you. One day we'll see you at an event. Maybe it's not anytime soon since we aren't doing too many live events. Maybe, who knows? But you have to not be attached to that. And a hunter is attached to what can I eat and kill today? And a farmer thinks nurture and tend and in good time. And that's why we always talk about being farmers versus hunters. I think there are listeners who are promoting something. So maybe they're a wholesaler or maybe they're teaching or whatever that is. And so you get your mind around, okay, I need to brand and market myself. But even if you're just a passive investor, when you show up with an offer through your agent, there's a reputation that precedes you. And so it's important that you really think through how you're going to show up. Everybody's on social media today. This is one of the areas where you embraced pretty quickly social media. And I know you have some really strong feelings about it. So even if someone's not have a business, but showing up on social media, share some of the things that you have there.
Yeah. So, I sold all my companies in 2007. So my $1 million+ list, all the intellectual properties. And I retired and I was Mr. Mom for a while. And when I came back out in 2013, I knew the quickest, fastest way to get back out in the marketplace was social media. Now, I still think building an email list is the most important thing you can do. So whether you have a podcast or you're on social media or you attend events or you advertise, the ultimate goal is still to get the person onto your list so you can talk to them. That's the only thing you get to control.
So let me stop you for a minute because this is gold. I meet so many people that have done tons of business, but they've lost track of the people. That's throwing money away.
Exactly. So if I'm going to do an ad in the newspaper or on the radio, right?
Which I'm all in favor of.
Right. Of course, 100%. My ultimate goal is to get someone's contact info so I can follow up, not necessarily as a hunter, but just put them on my list. And what I say is get people on your wheel. You talk to them, you bring value, and occasionally you give them something to say yes to.
Well, let's just use this as an example. It's probably obvious. Maybe you've listened to our show for a long time. Maybe you're new. But we have a podcast that goes out every week. We're a radio show, so we originate on terrestrial radio. We then edit a podcast version of the show, and it's now downloaded in more than 190 countries and millions of downloads, and it's free. And for many people, that's all it will ever be. But certain people engage and they go, oh, I'm really interested in this. And wow, they're doing an event on real estate syndication. I'll show up. And then they show up and they meet our tribe. And they go from being someone who is just in the passive listening audience to being an active member of what we're doing. And so the wheel is brilliant. I mean, we've adopted this into our business because there's certain things on your wheel that are designed to bring people to you. That could be a newsletter. It could be that you're just sending out really cool articles from other people. It could be a podcast. It could be that you're doing a YouTube video once a week. Whatever it is, you're sending out something. Now, it doesn't have to be with the mind to sell a specific product. It's just to create value. So there are things on your wheel that don't necessarily pay you. But there are other things on the wheel that do.
Yeah, and I think if someone's not doing anything, the wheel actually sounds very simple. But the more you're involved, the more complex it becomes. And every time you say yes to something that forces your hand to then embrace it, then that takes you to the next step. The minute you say, okay, from now on, the rest of my business life, when I meet someone or I come in contact with someone, or if they reach out to me about my product or business, or I run an ad or I attend an event, I want to have a way to capture the info of the people I talk to and then add them to a permission-based way to send them value. That's step one. So people decide that. Well, then step two is how do I find the right place to put that? Is that Infusionsoft or Aweber or Constant Contact? Okay, then you figure that out. Now you got to talk to them. So you got to come up with value. So you start now thinking, when I listened to Robert and Russ's podcast, they said some powerful things. Maybe I'll share that with my list. Maybe I read something from a book. Maybe it's tax time and I have some great ideas to share with my network of people. And again, that forces you to start creating content and value and putting yourself out there. Now, if you're on social media, you not only do it to your email list, you do it on social media. Now, maybe that turns into a talk or a presentation. So it turns into a blog. So you have that going. Now you have some people interested and they're saying, hey, that's really powerful. I love your post. This is good. How do I get more? Well, your time might be too valuable to do one-on-one mentoring, but maybe you put together a program or you put together some sort of an event. Or it's even saying, hey, I recommend this meetup group, whatever it may be. So that's the next piece, is you got to give people something to say yes to. Now, once you get that down, people say yes to something. Then you got to think through, what's that going to lead to? If someone spends a half a day with me or a day with me and they really love it and they want more, then what's next? And then all that has to be filtered into some key things. What do you ultimately want for yourself? Like, you don't want to go do all this and build something you don't want. So ultimately, you got to say 5, 10 years from now, what kind of business, what kind of life do I want to have? And you want to make sure everything you're doing along the way is taking you in that direction. Who's the avatar person you want to work with? Had a call with someone yesterday. They had a brilliant idea, but it's the avatar of people I don't want to work with. I didn't sell everything, retire, and come back in to do what they were wanting me to do. Would it work? Yeah, but that's not what I want to do. So the wheel forces you to say, who is it you want to work with? What are your goals about? What's your secret sauce? Who do you want to attract? How do you put that message out in the marketplace? And Robert, here's what's really interesting. We both know people that don't have a list, they don't have a product, and they're more overwhelmed by people reaching out to them than people with the will. Because once you have the will, like in your case and in my case, you have systems. You send out an email, it goes one to many. They respond. You have free stuff. You have your free podcast. You have your free blog. You have free articles. You have stuff on social media. You have places to put people. But if they want to engage with you one-on-one, you have that too. Oh, here's my link to my memory and marketing event, or here's my link to my inner circle, right? And you just have places to put people that's already been organized. Now, you don't go build this all at one time. It begins first making the decision, I'm going to build a list. And I can't tell you how many people, there's investors that have built a list and investors that haven't, right? We're drinking out of a Ken McElroy mug that he gave us today. Ken was very quick to figure out the will.
Yeah.
There are authors who have built a list and authors who hadn't, speakers that have, speakers that hadn't, doctors that have, doctors that haven't. I deal with these people all the time. So it begins with the conscious effort of, I'm going to build an audience. Then I'm going to talk to the audience, and occasionally I'm going to give them something to say yes to. And then you start saying, maybe I should create a platform. Maybe it's time to create a podcast or to offer something. And that's when you start now being able to build an audience. And what does an audience do? It helps you attract talent. You have Robert Kiyosaki. You have some of the most amazing people part of your podcast. I just had Dennis Waitley, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Mark Victor Hansen on my recent Inner Circle calls. Why? Because I have an audience. So the people with talent out in the marketplace, the thought leaders, they need an audience to talk to. Well, if you build an audience, then you can attract talent. And all this just fits together perfectly, right? And at the same time, you're not having to sell. All you're doing is putting good stuff out there and attracting the people that might want to do business with you. And being very clear about the people that it might not be a good fit for them or you. There's many times you just walk away if you say, this isn't really going to work long term.
Well, to me, the wheel's really a philosophy about how you manage those parts of your business. Because people have a funnel, and they think of a process of a funnel. Well, they have to go here, then here, then here. That feels very different than the wheel. You can jump into the wheel anywhere. Like we have everything at the Real Estate Guys, from a free podcast to a $15,000 week plus summit. You've been on the summit the last 5 years,
Yep.
So you know all about that. That's a big jump, right? To go from podcast to summit. People make that jump in our world, and we're glad they do. That's the highest level event we have, and we only do it once a year. But then the typical person doesn't follow that. They maybe get the podcast. They go to our website and see we've got a whole bunch of free reports, like a huge library. They pick out a couple of those. The next thing you know, they show up at an event. The next thing you know, they come to another event. The next thing you know, maybe they join your Inner Circle program, which I've been a part of since the beginning, and they get that angle. And then maybe they decide they want to jump in with both feet. I mean, there's all kinds of places to engage. And the point is, if someone does nothing but just get your free email, that's fine.
Exactly.
And if they don't like it, it's not for them. You're not facing rejection. You're not worried about it. And you really are fishing with the right kind of bait. And I know you use the fishing analogy. We use kind of the farmer analogy, but having the right thing to say, that's finding this avatar, this person that is the right person for you.
Yeah, and I think the fishing and the farming are both accurate and slightly different,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because I'm totally about the farming. I always say if you want to have a vineyard, and I had one at one time, it's going to take 5 years. There is no get-rich-quick program that's going to help you.
You can't scream at the ground and grow.
No one's got the fastest way to get there other than the gestation period of time it's going to take to do that. Fishing, what I like about the fishing analogy as well, is that you just put out the right stuff in the right place at the right time based on your own values and who you want to attract. Like if you want to attract certain type of customer, that's where you go fishing and you give them the things that they're going to want. And then you don't worry about who says yes. And then my analogy is I like the fish to actually jump in the boat. Well, how do you do that? Sometimes you got to create irresistible offers that you feel really good about. Now, how do you do that? Part of that's when you have group ways of distributing content.
Right.
So anything you can do by group allows you to even create amazing amounts of value. And again, if someone says no, that's okay. You're not worried about it. And you don't judge that. And sometimes it is the timing. Again, it's just having enough people getting on the wheel. That's where I focused with Jim Rohn International. Jim had no list. He had no name. He had nothing. And my big thing in 93 is how do I get people on the wheel? And I created some tools built on these principles of secret sauce and, who's the avatar and what would be the most strategic thing that would knock down the dominoes. It's one thing I've always tried to do, Robert, is say what one thing will knock down all the other dominoes. Because again, we can get sidetracked into doing things that are one-offs. No one has time to do a one-off. It has to be something that's actually going to be strategic to take you to the next level.
Well, I think that's part of the message, right? People that do one-offs, they make the time and then they have to start over again. So much easier if you build it this way first. Folks that listen to the show probably hear us do real estate trivia every week, and many weeks we give away one of the awesome books that you've put together, more than 10 books on the Amazon bestseller list. We'll talk about your brand new book, and we'll give away a copy when we come back. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
Hungry for more real estate investing ideas? Here's 2 steps you can take today. First, go to realestateguysradio.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. You'll get access to a continuous feed of thought-provoking commentary specifically for real estate investors, while also focusing on broader picture economics. Then, once you're at our site, look for the Resources tab, where you'll find our amazing collection of special reports. Browse dozens of white papers, webinars, and market reports, and request the ones that appeal to you. What are you waiting for? Head to realestateguysradio.com to implement education for effective action.
Don't be like Charlie, who scans the internet for IRA information, often getting bad information from copycats who have no idea what they're doing. You deserve to work with a reputable firm that specializes in one thing, the EQRP. Lucky for you, Congress just made it possible for you to get up to $200,000 out of your current 401k or TSP, so you can invest that money in real estate or even your own business. Even if you're still working, it's possible to get access to all this money tax-free. Whether you're a full-time investor, a doctor, or a government employee, even if you have employees, the EQRP is your secret weapon. You'll never see this strategy in Money Magazine, only here with the Real Estate Guys. Every major accounting firm in America is quietly sharing this strategy with their wealthy clients, helping them get their funds freed from 401k jail. Hi, I'm Damian Lupo, and we have your solution. With the CARES Act expiring soon, this strategy will be gone forever. The EQRP company is ready to help you unleash your retirement funds now. Want to learn more about this strategy? Send an email to eqrp@realestateguysradio.com for my special EQRP report today.
Hello, this is Robert Kiyosaki. I'm the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if you're serious about learning how to invest in real estate, listen to the Real Estate Guys. They really know what they're talking about.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. Hey, you've just got a few moments to sign up for the Secrets of Successful Syndication. If you're interested in passively investing in bigger real estate deals, or you'd like to do those bigger deals using other people's money, this is the event for you, and it takes place virtually, so you can enjoy it from the comfort of your own home or office. All the details are on our website at realestateguysradio.com under events. We're talking today with Kyle Wilson about connecting the dots Before we get back to that interview, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia, your chance to win a prize by knowing today's Real Estate Trivia question, which of course has something to do with real estate. When you hear the question and think you know the answer, or you just want to guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. You'll need to send your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address, because if you're the winner, you're going to be one of the first people on earth to get Kyle's brand new book. It's called Success Habits of Super Achievers. It's an amazing book. We'll hear more about it in a minute. That book could be yours if you know today's real estate trivia question. Last week on the Real Estate Guys, we were talking with Paul Moore about the Delaware Statutory Trust. We asked this: Delaware, the state of Delaware, has only 3 counties. In case you're wondering, they're Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex. That's the lowest number of counties of any state. Which U.S. state has the most number of counties? Well, everything's big in Texas. The state of Texas has 254 counties. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Which country has the largest Arabic-speaking population in the world? Yeah, all the various Arabic dialects. Lots of folks speak that language or those languages. Which country has the most Arabic-speaking folks? If you know or just want to guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name, the answer to the question, and your mailing address. The first person that gets it right gets the brand new book, Success Habits of Super Achievers. That's today's real estate trivia question. We're with Kyle Wilson, the mastermind behind this new amazing book called Success Habits of Super Achievers. In fact, you've done a lot of these compilation books. A brilliant idea. It's hard to write a book. And I know you were involved with Mark Victor Hansen and Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneurial Soul. And Mark and Jack Canfield, as co-author, did a brilliant thing. They enlisted other people to help with those narrow niche books. And the books that you do are books that are all around an idea, a subject, a theme, but they're written by people from all walks of life. And it's so powerful. Let's talk about this new book, because this is maybe the best one yet. I haven't read the whole book, but you have more than 80 authors, some outstanding people. Tell us about Success Habits of Super Achievers.
Yeah, so this was on the radar for a long time, Robert, actually 20 years, because I really don't talk about the story too much, but a friend of mine did a book back in the 90s it was about success, and he went out and got these amazing thought leaders. And that's been in my back pocket for a long time, to do something like that and attach a charity to it. The books you mentioned that we've done up until now, I was trying to solve a very specific problem. And it was mainly members of my inner circle that were going out and paying $15,000, $20,000 to try and get someone to publish a book. And it didn't check any of the boxes that I think are important, like hitting number 1, having celebrity authorities that other people would know and could relate to, having a coach, having an editor, and most importantly, learning how to market. So I thought, okay, how can I solve this problem for people that are very valuable to me and I care about? So we did one book, and we thought, we'll see where it goes. And what's happened to date is 30% of the people in my books have now been in 3 or more books.
Okay.
So it's incredible. And probably 40% have written their own book. And many wrote their own book after being in this. And so we kind of have a who's who of those people. But it was time to do something different. Me and my editor, Dakar Seitz, who couldn't do these books without her, we had talked about this for a long time. And so we did it in conjunction with my new podcast, Success Habits of Super Achievers. And I said, for the podcast, I want to have people I've known and worked with for over 20 years that are iconic thought leaders. So, I kicked it off with you and Darren Hardy and Brian Tracy and Les Brown and Mark Victor Hansen, John Assaraf, Ron White, just people I've known for a long time. And the goal was to distill wisdom that you guys have that most listeners wouldn't know, from having just from outside. It's just an opportunity to interview someone and go deep.
Yeah. I think the interview we did was a couple hours long, right? And, we're in a 55-minute clock hour at the Real Estate Guys. So our shows are all about the same length. Once we strip out a few commercials for the podcast, it varies a little bit. But it was interesting because we've talked about you doing a podcast for a long time. But to your credit, you were intentional. You weren't in a hurry. You made sure you thought through and how it was going to affect your avatar on the wheel and all that. Now it's one of my favorite podcasts because you get that angle that nobody else is getting. Yeah, a lot of guests. I've been fortunate enough to shirt tail a few times with you and got to sit with Dennis Waitley, and you did your interview and I did my interview. Same thing with Brian Tracy and many more, some of the iconic personal development folks. But I think that the distinction is that these are people that if you call, they pick up the phone. I mean, you don't just know the names in their books. You've worked with these people. And even though we like to think of you as the guy that connects the dots and a major marketer and a connector and all that, at the end of the day, there's no one more tied into the personal development world than Kyle Wilson. And so to be able to get those kind of folks, because this book is filled with them. Les Brown, Phil Collin, the lead guitarist of Def Leppard, Lisa Haisha, who is amazing. She's got this incredible television series. She's married to an amazing Hollywood producer. I mean, you've got all these incredible folks who all have something to say. But how, sitting down to write a book, that's a big project. But writing a chapter, that's doable.
Yeah. So the premise was I'm going to start the podcast, Success Habits of Super Achievers, and be with Darren Hardy at his house or Brian Tracy at his house and interview these iconic thought leaders. Yeah, I'm going to go 2 hours or 3 hours as long as he'll do it.
Until he kicks you out.
Yeah. And then saying, hey, listen, we're doing this book and I'm also gathering authors from some of the previous books I've done that I think would be a great fit. So that was the criteria for this book. It was 25 iconic thought leaders and people that have been part of previous books we've done that we know well. Every single person I interviewed, and we really focused on their story that would provide wisdom and insights for the readers. And I'm just kind of blown away by the quality of the stories. And yeah, we definitely talk success habits, but we talk, it's just story form, like Phil Collin of Def Leppard. Again, if you don't know who that is, I mean, they've sold over 100 million albums.
One of very few musical acts to sell over 100 million copies of anything.
And so, I've been to Phil's house multiple times. We did a project several years ago, and he's just the best human being. And we spent almost 2 hours on the podcast. And then again, taking that and trying to find the most valuable part for the reader with the book, where we talk about Rick Allen losing his arm, and Phil really goes into the story. And we talk about how Mutt Lange actually told Phil, you got to learn to sing, because just playing the guitar, that's great, but being a songwriter and learning to sing would bring incredible value. And then Phil talked about why he quit drinking over 30 years ago, and he was having blackouts, and he was just incredibly candid and honest. And I would say, Robert, with every interview, I would say, is there anything we can't talk about? And in some cases, I would even bring up, like, I know you lost 10 million here, or I know this, or I know that.
Yeah.
And every time they said, no, ask me whatever you want, because I want this to be valuable for the listener. And so we took, I think, the best of the best from these podcast interviews and translated it into each story. And it's so hard. I mean, like Les Brown, just so much great content about how to be a great communicator and how to share your message. But then equally going into his battle with cancer for 20 years, talking about the divorce he went through, talking about when he couldn't get out of bed and, was going through some severe challenges. But then he doesn't leave you there. He takes you into what he did. And so I feel like there's a lot of honesty. But the word I keeps coming up for me is wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom from all our authors. There's some common threads. I think resiliency is a common thread. People that have been through massive challenges and had to overcome it. Personal development's definitely a common thread. Mentors comes up. Everyone's had mentors. And here's an interesting one. Serendipity. Almost every person that is playing at a major level had something that took them from where they were, like me having a detail station in Vernon, Texas, to being Jim Rohn's partner. That doesn't just happen on going down the normal path. There was things that happened, and that has been a common theme. John Assaraf, talking about being up in Canada and meeting his future mentor and how that took him down a whole other road. Oftentimes roads that everyone around them stayed in the same path. Carlos Tejero talking about, growing up in the projects in Los Angeles and somehow getting out, getting educated. Now, has a massive syndication business in the student housing world. And again, just powerful stories. I'm really proud of the people we have in the book. I'm even more proud of the content and the honesty and just how authentic I think each story is.
It's funny that you have this idea of success habits. So you think, well, it's all going to be just happy high notes, but it's not. The fact that people take you through some of the ugly, I think, is huge benefit. Nobody is just straight line successful to the top. People that have had success almost always have some terrible, horrible story in their background, but they used it as a springboard, right? And I think that's a big part of the misunderstanding of success is it's just, oh yeah, I was born into a rich family, always had a ton of money, everything I did turned to gold. No, absolutely. Mr. Rohn used to say at the events, wow, this is about the biggest group of failures, right, I've ever seen, because that was the whole thing, that you would take that and you would use it to make yourself better, to use your past, not to beat yourself up with, but as a university to learn from.
And I think putting it in context, like Darren Hardy, former publisher of Success Magazine, Darren said he's reached over 1 billion people the past year through his Darren Daily and other things he does. And he said, listen, I can't take that much credit. He said, I have this obsessive nature, almost like a Stephen Jobs, to prove I'm good enough because my mom left when I was little. My dad was this controlling, obnoxious football coach that made me feel like I had to succeed. And he said, listen, I have done so many things because of all these other reasons just to prove I'm good enough. He said, but I finally figured out, okay, that's fine because it's helped me get to where I am now. And so I'm going to take the negative and I'm going to use it for good. Instead of fighting that, I'm just going to balance it out. I'm going to say, okay, this is how I'm wired. And it's helped me now reach over 1 billion people. And so again, just taking things like that where it might not be, things don't have to fit in a box. You just have to find what works for you.
Well, in fact, one of the stories you sent over to me early when you were putting the book together was Darren's story, which had been culled from his interview. And there's just some great points in there. Same thing with the 3 or 4 I've read. So I'm really anxious. The book is launching this week. So if you're listening live this week to the podcast, if you're listening, years afterwards, you can still pick the book up. But this is the week to do it. In fact, you've put together a bunch of really cool bonuses. Talk about that because you want people to get out there and help make this thing another #1 bestseller.
Yeah, so we love to give away bonuses when people say yes. So we've put together over a few $100s worth of free gifts. So when people go buy the book, getsuccesshabitsbook.com, when you go buy the book, whether it's the Kindle, which I think is $3.97 and the paperback is $11.97, and we're talking a 300-page book, 7x9. This is significant. But we want you to get it. So it's $12. By the way, we donate 100% of the launch profits to a charity. So that's always really cool as well.
Well, what's great about your books is the charity changes, right?
Exactly. And we have some cool criteria. We want charities that actually, don't have a lot of heavy admin costs, right? We love it when it's a small charity, boots on the ground. They have a volunteer organization. And I love charities that actually feed and clothe people that are out there helping the people that really need it. So we're excited about that with this launch. But when you go buy the book, in addition to 100% going to charity, if you send an email to gifts@successhabitsbook.com, gifts@successhabitsbook.com, with just your receipt that you bought the book, we'll send you all the bonuses, all the free gifts. You have a couple of amazing gifts part of it and just some great stuff. But the big thing is the book itself, right? Making a difference in someone's life.
I read every one of these books, and then for me, there are certain key stories. And it's not necessarily someone I know. I mean, I have the great honor of knowing many of these people that are in these books, but I also meet people that way through their story. And then when you meet somebody and there's some commonality, this is the perfect opportunity to say, let me send you this book, or here's a link to this book. You don't have to buy the book, but you've made it easy for people to do. At the front, there's a to and a from, so you can sign these books to people and give them away. And it's the kind of book that's going to have an impact on somebody in your life.
I'm so glad you said that. Like Mark Victor Hansen's, who's in the book, his most recent book, Ask. I bought 100 copies. And when I give the book away to people and they read that book now and it changes their life, or they read it in a year, or they pick it up in 10 years, they're going to remember me. Yeah. Eric Worre gave me the book Atlas Shrugged, a leather-bound copy in 1994. I never mention that book where I don't mention Eric giving it to me, right? So we do have a to and from. We do love to encourage people to buy multiple copies. And we actually have a way, if they go to kylewilson.com/books, they can buy multiples of any of the books, mix and match, including this book, and get a big, huge discount. And again, the books all have a to and from. And so we want to empower people. And this goes back to my Jim Rohn days. We moved millions of books as a tool just to get great content out and to make it easy for advocates to go share it, right? If it costs you a fortune to buy a book, you're not going to give as many away. So that's why if someone wanted to buy these books in multiples, they could go to kylewilson.com/books and get them heavily discounted. And it's a great gift. And that's the cool thing, is someone's story in this book's going to matter. And someone, you're going to know someone in the book, whether it's Todd Stoudemire, 15-year Major League Baseball player, Kevin Eastman, 12-year NBA coach, Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Brian Tracy.
On and on.
On and on.
Yeah, great folks. So you can check it out if you just go to getsuccesshabitbook.com, and you can learn about who all the authors are and pick up a copy this week. You probably, if you're on our email list, also got an email about that. And we just love to spread the word, and good stuff. Hey, before you're out of here, Kyle, coming up, it is the 19th Annual Investor Summit, which for the first time we're not doing at sea. We're doing it in beautiful Belize. Can we count you in?
100%. Yeah, I'm there.
All right, excellent.
I've been there many times. It's incredible.
Yeah, so we'd love to have folks join us for the summit, and you can meet and pick Kyle Wilson's brain there. Great success to the podcast and the book. Thanks for being back with us.
Hey, thanks for all the encouragement to start the podcast, and you were one of my first guests, and you gave me so much great coaching about launching a podcast, and it's just been amazing. I've loved the feedback, and it's been amazing. So thank you so much for your mentorship and friendship.
Indeed, 25 years now we've known each other.
Wow,
crazy stuff. The podcast and the book are called Success Habits of Super Achievers. Check them out. Big thanks to Kyle Wilson. We'll be back with more. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
Real Estate Guys listeners, are you tired of losing real estate deals due to financing issues? Have you had enough of waiting on banks, lenders, and investor groups to fund new projects? What if there were a way to eliminate all the hassle and invest in real estate on your own terms? I'm here to tell you there is. Patrick Donahoe here from Paradigm Life. I'm an Investopedia Top 100 Most Influential Financial Advisor, and I recently wrote a best-selling book about the financial strategy that changed my entire investment model, and the one that could change yours. To get a copy of my book for free and learn how you can maximize your real estate portfolio by acting as your own bank, send an email to mybank@realestateguysradio.com. Don't make another real estate deal without reading my book first. Email mybank@realestateguysradio.com now to get your copy for free.
In uncertain times like this, it's great to know there are two things you can always count on: high demand for affordable single-family homes to live in, and Terry Kerr's amazing Memphis team at Mid-South Home Buyers to find, fix, and manage the next addition to your recession-resistant real estate portfolio. The Memphis market is logistics and distribution dynamo with an economic engine that's essential to moving goods and critical supplies all over the United States. Quality rehab, proven profitable property management, affordable rents, and solid ROI make turnkey property investing through Terry's team a dream when it matters most. To learn more about Memphis and Mid-South Home Buyers, send an email to midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, I'm Steve Forbes. You're listening to The Real Estate Guys. Listen up.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks so much for tuning into this show. Oh my goodness, what a whirlwind. It's always interesting to talk to Kyle Wilson.
Yeah, Kyle's a smart guy, and I think that's probably pretty obvious. But the thing that I appreciate about Kyle and people that think the way Kyle does is they operate under what I call patterns and principles. So it isn't really a magic formula. You can trust your gut. You can be instinctive. You can be reactive to an ever dynamic changing environment. But if you follow some principles, and one of the things he talked about was this concept of compounding.
Right.
And it reminded me, Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy, or so I've heard, called compounding interest was the context, the eighth wonder of the world. But you can compound, in our book, Equity Happens, we talk about equity optimization. Last week, we talked about Delaware statutory trust in 1031, which is kind of a way to compound equity. But when you compound relationships, Kyle was talking about compounding relationships, not churning your list, but actually growing your list and getting your list to grow itself organically through referral. I think that is just a higher level of art form in marketing than probably 95% of the people out there are even aware of, much less really put focused strategy and tactics into doing well.
So much of business, it seems, is accidental, but it really isn't. It's strategic. And just because you set out to be great in relationships doesn't mean you're not genuine about it. Kyle is one of the most genuine people I know. And at the same time, he's very clear. One of his rules for success, he doesn't meet for lunch or dinner or coffee. It's just, the amount of time that takes. Now, this is all pre-COVID, and COVID nobody does, right? But he just, one of his things, hey, that's not a way to spend time with me. Now, we're honored that Kyle comes to many of our events. He's on our SMC advisory board, and he comes to our syndication event, even though he's not a speaker, but he certainly understands how to get a message out. He's been doing it for many, many years. Of course, I first met Kyle through Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn was just absolutely amazing. Thanks to Kyle, Equity Happens is one of the few books that Jim Rohn ever endorsed. I remember asking Kyle, do you think Mr. Rohn might endorse our book? And Kyle said, well, he might. He likes you guys, but he might say no, so just be ready for that. And to our amazement and surprise, he wrote us a great little blurb for our book. So Kyle has really been about relationships for a long time, and this new book, super excited about. I've only read about 4 chapters, so full disclosure, but I'm going to guess just based on some of the amazing authors in this book, it's going to be amazing. If you want to get a copy, all you have to do is go to getsuccesshabitsbook.com. GetSuccessHabitsBook.com, and you'll find out about all the bonuses and so forth, including one from the Real Estate Guys.
Well, we're happy to contribute because, when I think back in my own personal development, I didn't know Kyle. I met Kyle through you, and that was quite some time ago, but probably 20 years before that, Jim Rohn was impacting my life, and I had no idea that it was Kyle Wilson who was the guy that was actually capturing those great audios and putting out those little booklets and giving me all those quotes that kept me motivated when I was a young businessman trying to support my family and make it in the world and figure out all the junk going on inside my head. So I think the thing that really is the principle there that I see with Kyle is he understands value. And he understands the importance of bringing value. He recognizes value like a collector, like a collector of good ideas. And he recognized the value that Jim Rohn had and the value that was going to be lost to the world if somebody didn't capture it, the way a great curator at a museum would recognize something that needed to be preserved for generations. And so Kyle, in his own way, is maybe not a national treasure directly, but a curator of national treasures. And he's pulling brilliance out of rank and file people. And, we're in a world today now where we're discovering that there's a lot of people out there that you would never, ever get to know. They don't have a stage or a forum. But because of the way we're interconnected now, and guys like us can have a show and a podcast and be heard all over the world, great ideas don't necessarily have to be well packaged, but they do have to be captured and presented to people, and Kyle's a master at doing that.
So big thanks to Kyle Wilson for sharing his time with us today, and make sure you go out and get a copy of Success Habits of Super Achievers. Hey, if you've got a question for the Real Estate Guys, coming up, we've got another edition of Ask the Guys. Your questions, our answers. All you have to do is go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click the button that says Ask the Guys. We certainly can't answer every single question, but we're going to answer a bunch of them coming up. Until next week, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.